All right. Have you ever wondered what it's like to go through Wheeler Mission's longest program? What is it like to go from addicted to hopeful and with a life that's being restored? So, in this episode of Voices of Hope podcast, we're talking to Justin, and he's going to tell his whole story. It's an amazing one, one that's filled with turmoil, with chaos, with hopelessness, but one that is now filled with hope and with restoration and with family leadership. You're gonna hear lots of things in his story. I really enjoyed this one. I hope you did too. All right, I'm here with Justin Kramer. Welcome, Justin. Welcome to the podcast. So I'm excited to hear your story because you and I have a similar connection here at Wheeler Mission when it comes to the Hebron Addiction Recovery Program. And so you've got a whole story that's really just getting started when it comes to God bringing you on the other side of it. But you've got a whole history that I'd love to dig into on, what brought you to Wheeler Mission and just what it was like inside of one of Wheeler's flagship programs, our longest program, which you recently graduated just a couple years ago. And I know you're on staff now, and so you're helping other people to get help that you received. And so we're going to dig in all that. But first of all, again, just welcome. I'm glad you came to share.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start kind of where you're from, and maybe a little bit about your childhood before you came to Wheeler Mission. Like what was young Justin like?
So I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and my dad worked in kitchen supplies, sales and stuff like that. He ended up getting a job in Columbus, Ohio. So I didn't grow up in New Orleans, but I was there for probably a year, moved to Columbus, Ohio, or a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and grew up there. It was an upper middle class household. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a traveling kitchen supply sales rep. So anything from, anything you'd find in the back of the house in a kitchen, pizza ovens, cut tables, fountain drinks, reverse osmosis machines. That's, basically what his wheelhouse was. My upbringing was basically, if you want to call it the normal family household, although we were not exactly normal, but it took a while to figure that out. But we wanted for nothing, did the normal thing, I guess is what you could call it. I didn't get in trouble, and I grew up in sports. My dad was the soccer coach. We did the traveling soccer thing. And then at a certain point in my life, I decided that I wanted to be cool, I guess, fit in with a different crowd.
Yeah.
And so there was a segue in my teens that led me down a darker path.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, talk to me about that. What was the darker path? So you say teen, so you're in high school at this point, right? So or junior high. So
at around the age of 7, I started getting into my dad's liquor cabinet, and in my teens, I started hanging out with people that were into music and were smoking pot and drinking and, all that kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's what I'd like to do. And so I pursued a life in music. After my neighbor across the street got a guitar, my next door neighbor got a drum set, I got a bass guitar. And so I basically pursued that, and it became an idol in my life.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So 7. And tried alcohol for the first time. What was that like? Is it just you stole a sip here, or that's something that?
Yeah, a sip here, and then it became a reoccurring thing.
Yeah.
It was something that I was like, "Ooh, this is nice. This is what I've been missing," kind of deal. And it blossomed into other things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I was doing it all the time, all at once. But it snowballed.
Yeah. So you've got a stable home, right? And you've got and your parents are involved in your life.
Yeah.
You just mentioned your dad coaches your soccer team, right?
Yeah.
So once you started going down that path, did some of those normal activities start to disintegrate? I mean, you talk about being involved in sports and just normal activities, but did you start to lose interest in those things, or?
Yes. The soccer team was like my second family. But then I started pursuing this music which was interfering with my social, or, the sports were interfering with my social life. I was doing cross country for the school that I was at. And then I was doing the select soccer outside of that. We were traveling around a lot. And then when I started trying to form my own social network outside of that and pursue the music thing, I started making excuses as to why I didn't want to go to soccer practice or a game. And then it got to a point where I just wasn't going at all. And my dad was still coaching the team, and I felt bad about it. And he had a conversation with me at a point and even made a deal with me. I'll buy you this guitar if you come to start coming back to practice. And so I made that deal, and then ultimately didn't end up going. And so I always felt bad about that. And then, later on down the road, I started rebelling. And so him and I had a falling out, and that led to, he ended up getting cancer. And when he had cancer and he was going through chemo and radiation therapy, I started stealing his pills. And and that's something I'm not proud of, but that led me down a whole nother path as well. So,
yeah. Did your parents know this?
Not until later on. My dad never knew. My mom found out about it, but this was after his passing. So
when did he pass?
I was 21. I don't know the exact year, and I know that sounds bad. And we were really close up until I started rebelling and wanted to do my thing. We made up before his passing. He was in and out of the hospital with the cancer, and I think I was in a state of denial because I would just always assumed he was coming back home. And so we reconciled to a certain degree. I told him I was sorry, and he said that he was sorry too, and that he loved me. And I don't know, a few months later he passed away, and I was too busy with my opiate addiction to be there when he passed away. And I did attend the funeral, but it was. You
weren't all there, right? Yeah.
Really, no.
Yeah. So what's obviously that weighs on a son too, right? Over time, just that experience and just not being there or missing it, or just. So I'm sure that's stuff that you had to get through when it came to your getting help here at Wheeler Mission too, right?
It did.
Yeah.
I guess I never really grieved, and I never really dealt with all of that, the shame and the guilt. I essentially had to forgive myself at a point and say, we're going to move forward from this.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, it just fueled the fire of my opiate addiction, which segued into heroin addiction, which I was addicted to heroin for 15 years. And then the last 2 years I spent mixing that with crack. And so that was a very gnarly run.
Yeah, you're lucky to be alive then.
I'm blessed. God pulled me out of a lot of situations. And the thing is at that point in time, I was atheist, and I didn't believe it all. And God's got a sense of humor, and it's not a ha-ha funny. It's an ironic sense of humor. And when he wants to get your attention, he will. And it's ironic.
Yeah. So how did he get your attention? What was?
Well, I had several situations where I would do what I wanted to do, which would lead me into a bad position. And then I would seek help. And at one point in time, I went through a sober living community that was faith-based. And so I had a little interest in it, I guess you could say a mustard seed. And, but I had this, I guess you could call it faith at that point, but no knowledge. And so when the tests came, I didn't know what they were. And so, it got to a point where I was attending these church services and going through the sober living community and doing what I deemed the right thing. I'm doing all the right things. And eventually the situation came where I was a sales rep at a gym, and I was idolizing myself, the money and the fitness, and I wasn't putting any stock into, growing in my faith or having a relationship with Christ. And I ended up getting a hernia by lifting incorrectly. And so all of a sudden I'm in this situation where I'm selling fitness, but I can't partake in it. And everything that I had built my foundation on was suddenly crumbling and gone. And so I would go to the hospital to try and get this hernia taken care of, but I had opted not to get the insurance through work, and I made too much money to get the government assisted insurance. So I was in a situation where they won't do anything because it's a cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
And so they kept going, well, here are these pills. And I'm like, well, I can't take the pills.
Yeah.
You know?
You've been down that road before, right? Yeah.
Right. And so it got to the point where the third time I went, I was just like, all right, give me the pills. And so that started that addiction back up. And I realized at that point that, well, I can't work at the gym and do this because a lot of the guys that I worked with were recovering addicts. Gene Schumar was my mentor in that aspect because I didn't know it was a sales position. I kind of got into it, and the guy in the interview was like, well, we sell stuff here. Can you sell stuff? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I ended up being really good at it. And the manager would always give me a hard time when she would cut my checks. She'd be like, I don't like cutting your checks because you make more than I do. I'm like, sorry, switch professions.
Perk of the sales job, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I realized that I couldn't be in that environment selling fitness and getting high at the same time. So I had heard through the grapevine, one of the other guys that I worked with had gotten a job doing door-to-door cable sales, and it was lucrative at that point in time. And so I looked into it, and the company that he was with didn't hire me, but I applied at another company that was a little lesser known and got hired in there. And the funny thing is when the company that they were with got bought out, all of him and the guys that he worked with were getting a hold of me to come over to this other company. And so I ended up getting this job and making over $100,000 a year, but that was a really bad situation for somebody that was, steeped in addiction because the
you're
more
on these
money
pills
I
at the
had,
time, right?
No,
not yet.
That was, I think it had blossomed into heroin at that point because it started out with Oxycontin.
Full-blown addiction.
Yeah. Oxycontin. And then when they became hard to find, it blossomed into heroin addiction because, obviously that's the next go-to. The girl that I was getting the pills from was like, hey, we can't get these anymore, but I got this. And of course I'm like, well, I don't want to put a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, you don't have to do that. You can snort it. And sign me up, And so ultimately I ended up using a needle at some point, but, so I ended up getting this job and I'm making six figures and, I've never looked the part of that role, and that's served me well. And I, even use that to my advantage to work for not so nice guys and, in that industry, with dope. And I also had this job of going door to door and doing sales and not looking the part, not having a record. And I was making a ton of money, but at points I was living out of my car making, six-figure income, which is not normal.
Yeah, because you're spending it all on this lifestyle.
Right.
Right. And so talk to me about that. So money's not the issue, right? And that's not.
No,
you had money.
I was the issue.
Yeah, the money.
Hard issue.
money's there, right? But it's going away quickly, and it's not able to keep up with your lifestyle and your choices. And so a lot of people think that money is the fix, right? Like you're in those dire situations and I just need a place to stay and money.
Yeah.
But there's more that needs to be dealt with before you're able to be successful. So
yes. And that is ultimately the lesson that I learned throughout the 30 years of my addiction is I always tried to control the situation. I thought that if I got a new job, if I changed my surroundings, I even moved states, more money for me was more problems. And when I had, no money, I had the same problems as when I had the six-figure income. And that's, working in the industry that I'm in now. Everybody's always in a hurry to get back to their life.
Right.
And I've got this to do and I've got this priority.
You're talking about guys that are going through the addiction recovery programs.
Correct.
They're in a hurry to get back to something, right?
Yeah.
They remember the good times, the positives.
Yes.
but
well, maybe not even that, but it's an excuse that my family needs me. I've got kids that I've got to pay for, and I've got all this and that.
Yeah.
And that was me. I was always in a hurry to get back. It was always an excuse that I had to take care of X, Y, and Z, which ultimately got me back there. And then, I got some trust in my life.
Yeah.
And then it was
from others. Yeah.
Yeah. In 3 months. And then I was right back in my mess.
So talk to me about your responsibilities at this point. So are you married? Do you have kids?
So
yeah.
I have three children. I'm not married. However, I am in a process of working it out with my son's mother, who by all means I should not, she should not, I shouldn't have this opportunity. We'll put it that way. I don't deserve it. But we are in the process of reconciliation, getting counseling.
Well, this is now, but like while you're going through this time, right? Like where you have this dual life that you're living, right? You have this addiction life that's killing you, right? And you are also maintaining a job and you're making money, but responsibilities at the time. Do you have kids at the time that you're?
So yeah, my daughter Zoe at the time, I was in and out of her life, and unfortunately, our relationship is the best now that it's ever been. But it's more we are getting to know each other, and that's a bad thing to say. It makes me feel bad. But the world raised my daughter. I didn't, and so, unfortunately, she's not a believer. And I never, beat her up with a Bible, but I, as it was told to me, preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words. And so with her, I'm just leading by example and planting the seeds. And if she has questions, then she's asked me to pray for her in situations, which leads me to believe that she's showing interest in it. But her mother and I were both heroin addicts. And so she's seen the damage that it's done.
Okay.
And ultimately she turned out pretty well, given the circumstances. And she's in college now for physical therapy.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So lots going on, right? And so eventually all this comes to a head and you reach out for help. Yeah. Right. And you end up at Wheeler Mission at some point. Talk to me about that. What exactly led you to reach out and decide you want this to change? I'm sure something big happened, right? And then we end up on the doorstep of Wheeler Mission. Talk to me about that.
So I moved from Columbus, Ohio to get off of the opiates. And after getting myself in a pretty bad situation there, I had wrecked my car and I was pretty much down and out. My mother had remarried a gentleman here in Zionsville. And I called her and I said, Mom, I need to get out of Ohio. I'm either going to end up in jail or dead, one of the two. And so they came and picked me up and brought me out to Zionsville. I ended up getting off of the opiates. However, I picked up drinking. Drinking, in my opinion, is worse than the heroin because I made way more worse decisions on the alcohol than I did with the heroin. I mean, I had 15 years of heroin addiction. I only caught a heroin charge or a paraphernalia charge. Here, I started getting OWIs and domestic batteries, and I ended up in jail a few times. I was in rehab so often that I was treated like staff. I had the door codes. I would give the tours when the new guys would come in.
This is in Ohio or in Indiana, in Zionsville?
This is the ARC that is here in Indianapolis. And in fact, I network with them now. Yeah. Last week, I went out and talked to the group that they have there, and I periodically go out and talk with them. So it's come full circle. But I would work the system where I was a sales manager for Guitar Center at the time. And so that fueled that, that industry fuels that addiction thing. And it's like when you're in sales and you're in the music industry, being an alcoholic it's hand in hand. If I come in smelling like alcohol, they're not going to really say anything as long as the numbers are good and the money's there. Yeah. And so what I would do is about every 3 months, I would check into rehab, call my manager, tell him I'm in rehab, ask him to file the FMLA, and then draw the disability that I've been paying into. And so it was like a paid vacation. And this would happen every 3 months to the point where they made a joke, which is a sad joke, but they would call it Kramer's fishing trip. And so Kramer's back on his fishing trip, and everybody knew what that was, you know. And so this went on for a couple of years, and I want to say it was 2020. It was the day before my birthday, in January. My mother passed away from COVID, and it was caused by, she had some comorbidities, which was bittersweet. She was slipping into dementia. But she also was having, issues. She'd had 3 strokes, and she was at the point where she was about to be intubated. Now, my son's mother is, at that time, was an ICU nurse. And so, she's like, well, people that get intubated at her age usually don't come off of it. And so my mom had made me make her a promise at one point in time when I was a kid that if she was ever in the situation where she would be kept alive by machines, she didn't want that. So I had to make a hard decision with me being the only family in town, and, to essentially, pull the plug, which was a hard thing to do, which ultimately fueled more of my alcohol addiction at that point. And it was bad being, at the house by myself while my son's mother was at work all day long, was really bad. And so that led to, a point at which I went into rehab not long after that, and, went through DTs and hallucinated and didn't know I was hallucinating. Long story short, so this went on for a while, and it got to a point where I got out, and Annette was pretty much at the point where she was done. She was like, if it happens again, you're done. And I decided that I'm going to change my scenario again and get more money. And so I went and I got a job at a dealership selling cars, brand new Mazdas. And so that was going to be really lucrative. I'd been out of rehab maybe 2 months at that point, and I was going through the training and all these modules and this and that, and all the different features of the cars and what customer to sell it to and why. And the day that they were going to let me sell was Friday. Thursday was my day off. So I decided to celebrate. And so that celebration was an all-day event. I got up in the morning, started drinking, but I was drinking slow because that's the responsible thing to do, right? And so it's me and my son hanging out. His mother's at work. We work on my car. His grandfather comes to visit. I get him in bed. He's ready for school in the morning. The house is in order. I don't eat meat either. And so that's been a thing for 36 or 37 years now. And I don't push my beliefs on anybody, but I cooked her a steak dinner that night. And so I was expecting her to come through the door with this, oh, my hero type thing, And she walks in and realizes that I'm drunk, and 3 sheets to the wind. So we get into an argument. And this escalates to the point of she calls the police. I end up fleeing. I got in my car, took off, left. And this is in Carmel, which, mind you, they don't, have a whole lot going out in Carmel. So going on out there. So I'm sure I was the hot ticket item that night, and I could hear all the police and this and that. And I got out of there, and then, like an idiot, they say, don't return to the scene of the crime. Well, I had to go to work the next morning, and all my stuff was there. So like an idiot, I returned, and got to the top of the street, and there's the police waiting for me. I don't know if they recognized me or not, but I dipped into an apartment complex and waited it out for a little bit. They had a drone over my house. I waited what I thought was long enough. I didn't see the cops around anymore. The drone was gone. I started the car, headed back to the house. As soon as I hit the top of the street, I saw headlights come on, and I knew it was over.
Yeah.
So I ended up, going around the block and parking in an apartment complex and throwing the keys outside of the car and just sitting, and I'm like, well, if they're going to get me, they're going to get me. And they ended up pulling up and pulling me out of the car, and I ended up in Hamilton County. And at that point in time, I was a non-believer. And so, if we had more time, I'd do all the ironic things that went on after that. But anyways, I had a come to Christ moment in jail, and accepted Jesus into my life and said, all right, what do you got for me? Where are we going with this? And about a week after that happened, my stepdad, who's the only family that was keeping in contact with me, who had no reason to keep in contact with me. I mean, I only knew him for maybe 5 years at that point. Contacts me, or I contact him, and he's not going to bail me out, but he finds out about the Hebron program. He had donated to Wheeler at some point and gotten in contact with Adam Beretta. And so I talked with Adam on the phone, and he explained the situation of the place, what it was. It was faith-based. It was a 9-month program. It's in the woods. It's in Bloomington. And that was basically all that I knew about it. And I was like, well, okay, I've got this new faith. And with having faith, you lean into the faith and see where it takes you. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's do this. And my stepdad bailed me out. And I ended up down at camp. And it was probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. Yeah.
So you came to Wheeler Mission. Obviously, there's turmoil going on all over your life, right? You're in jail, which is kind of got your attention, and there's nowhere to go. You have to consider your next steps at that point, right? And so your stepdad steps into this, and he's the one that gave you the information about what Wheeler Mission is. You never heard of it before.
No.
And there's a lot, from just the story you've told, there's a lot you're dealing with: the death of your father, your mother. You've got kids at this point. You've got responsibilities. Money has not been the fix. Your location has not been the fix.
No.
Nothing has fixed this issue, right? And you're introduced to Jesus in jail, and next thing you know, a door opens for an opportunity to get some help, right?
Yeah.
And so you took it.
Yeah.
And you weren't forced, right? The judge didn't.
No, I was on pretrial release. I could go wherever I wanted.
Yeah.
It wasn't like on a monitor or anything like that. This was before sentencing. So
yeah, but you got consequences over your head, of course, right? And not legally, and then also just in your life.
Yeah.
There's probably just a lot that's on your plate, on your mind, that I've got to get this unraveled, and I'm not sure how, right? Like, right?
I've tried every angle.
Kind of a hopeless feeling, right? Like I want to change, but man, I've made a mess here. How do I get through this, right? Like, how do I even start? Is that thought? And so, talk to me about. So you come to Wheeler, and I'm sure at that point you walk through the front door somewhere. Talk to me about that, and I'm sure you met some people as you come in. You do an intake interview. What was it like to get into the program, and who did you meet? What were those individuals like?
So this is how God works, and his ironic sense of humor. So my stepdad had bailed me out, or posted bail, the night before I got released. The idea was I was going to get out the next day. He was going to pick me up. We were going to go get something to eat because I don't eat meat, and so that's a thing in jail. So I'm looking to get something to eat on the way down there. And, I'm seeing all these guys that posted bail after me get released, one after the other. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And of course, in jail, nobody knows what's going on. You'll ask one person and you'll get a million different explanations. Long story short, I got discharged with just enough time to get from point A to point B, by the cutoff time for intake, because you got to be down there. They go home, they got lives outside of there. So, we get down there, and my stepdad's like, well, hey, Adam, I'm going to go into town and get him a sandwich or something. And then Adam's like, look, you've done enough. Just go on home. We got him from here. And then I addressed the fact that, once I'm in there and we're doing the intake, that I don't eat meat. And then that was the thing, and it's like, oh, well, we serve meat here, so you're gonna have to work with that. And I'm like, I don't know if I even could at this point, because this has been a 30 at that
stomach
35.
won't take it, right?
I really don't know. And I said, well, I made a commitment. I'm going to see it through. I'm going to stick with it. And I did. And some of the brothers there were helping me out with like snacks here and there because everything literally had meat in it. And and the funny thing is that about a week after getting there and praying on it, they started getting donations down there of vegan food.
No, really?
By the palletfuls. And I found out later that, nobody, and I was worried that somebody pulled strings. I was like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. It was Jim Irsay from the Colts was donating vegan food.
Really? Yeah.
And
I remember this. Yeah.
And so and he donated from the time I got there to the time I graduated. And then not long after that, he passed away. And for my faith, that furthered my faith because it was, God's perfect timing and I was provided for, and Irsay has a background in addiction,
Yeah.
And so that's that ironic stuff there. But my first experience though was,
it's funny when because I was involved in that conversation of bringing that donation in, right? And there was always this discussion is like, is anybody going to like this vegan food, right? Like there's going to be people that like reject this, right? And
sure.
It was good food. It wasn't it wasn't what some people would think it was, and people loved it, right? And some people didn't know it was vegan, but
sure.
And it helped someone individually get through our programs.
It really did.
And that was never the plan. That just happened. So that's amazing.
No, that was perfect. And the funny thing is they in fun they would give me a hard time about it, and they nicknamed them Kramer burgers.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Kramer. We're having a Kramer burger. I'm like,
yeah,
you're welcome.
Straight from the Colts owner.
Yeah. And I didn't find that out till later. But that's God's perfect timing.
Yeah.
It furthered my faith.
So doors are opening for you here at Wheeler, right? So you met Adam Beretta, who's the intake manager.
Yeah.
He obviously tells your stepfather, like, look, like enough's enough. Like you've taken it as far as you need to go, right? Eventually it's on the individual to decide for themselves. So you come into the program, right? And talk to me about the environment of the people in the program. Who are you meeting? What are the kind of people like? What's the first few weeks like when you get into the program?
So my first interaction, aside from like the staff there, was a guy they called Tiny, Ronald, and I can't think of what his last name is off the top of my head now. Unfortunately, he passed away due to some health issues. But he was the first interaction that I had, and super nice guy. And he called himself the Camp Uber. He worked in hospitality, and they had this van that they would use to move cleaning supplies around. And so basically, he took me down to the dorm and made me feel comfortable. Got me in there. And then the interaction with the gentlemen that were in program there, where they were all welcoming, trying to help me out with the food situation, which I thought was pretty nice. But it was a new thing, and so obviously you're trying to figure everything out and what have you. So getting acclimated was I got there on a Friday, so during the weekend there's no classes, there's no duties that you have to do or anything like that. So it's just a bunch of downtime. So I just I had a roommate that was probably one of the best roommates, and we just talked. And
so the environment here. So you didn't go directly to the shelter, right? So you're not at what most people know about Wheeler Mission, which is we have emergency shelter. You're not there, which is downtown.
Mm-mm.
So because of your specific needs, you go directly to Camp Hunt, which is in Bloomington. It's in the middle of the forest, right?
Yeah.
And 285 acres. There's a lake out there. You talk about roommates. You're in cabins or dorms, I guess is what we would call them.
Yeah.
And there's probably 40, 50 guys on site there.
I think it can house up to 70. I've never seen it get higher than 50 since I've been working in the position that I'm in. It fluctuates. Usually it stays around 40 to 47.
Yeah. So these are all 40 to 50 guys or more that are in the same situations. They're struggling with addiction. They don't really have an option of where to go. They might, but they've chosen that this is the best option for me, right?
Yeah.
There's no charge for this, right? Like
Right.
you're not asked to pay for anything. I'm assuming you're probably low on funds at this point, right?
Right. Yeah. Nobody's giving me any money. I mean,
Right.
at all. Yeah.
And so that's not really an option to go pay for expensive
Sure.
rehabilitation. And so you're at this camp, and you've committed to what? Did you commit to 9 months on the front end?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but you're meeting new people, and you're going through the program itself, right? So talk to me about what the day-to-day is like when you come into this environment. You have, again, a roommate. You're starting to tell that story, and I want to let you finish that. But what's the program like? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So on a day-to-day basis is basically you wake up, go to breakfast, you'll pray and pray out of that. There'll be a chore that's assigned, and depending on what room number you have, it's either odds or evens. It flip-flops. You'll have a chore either in the kitchen or a chore in the dorm, and then it'll switch to the next day. It's the odds and the evens.
So you're taking care of the facilities.
Correct.
itself,
It runs itself. It's self-sustaining, and it runs on the body of Christ through the donations that they receive.
Yeah.
And so after the chore, you'd pray out and go to your quiet time, which is your daily moral inventory reflection on what you are struggling with, what it says in Scripture with those struggles or life-dominating sins, what the counter to that is you're put on, and what it says in Scripture. You'll journal on it, talk to God in prayer. What's God revealing to you? What are the brothers revealing to you? Because that's how God speaks sometimes.
So there's a massive spiritual component to this whole program,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Which is all pointed towards Christ,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that's introduced, I assume, at intake, and that's obvious when you're in the program that this is a biblical model program, right?
Yeah.
Was there any issues with that for you? I mean, you're a new Christian, right?
No.
So, or were there others that had issues with that, or what's?
I think
the
some
environment?
people struggle with it sometimes, and the hope is at some point enough seeds are planted and the soil becomes fertile ground. It all depends on if they want to be stubborn or not. And then also the camp is good for addictions. It's also good for just anybody with life dominating sin. If you have old behaviors that are leading you down a bad path, it's a renewing of your mind while you're there. It's putting into practice the Word of God and doing that for 9 months with brothers in Christ. And that way, when you graduate and you get back to real world scenario, you know how to deal with things in a biblical manner versus just leaning on your own understanding and your emotions just leading the charge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So, but this is for an extended period of time too, right? And so why do you think it's so long? What was the importance there? I'm sure some of your other rehabs were probably 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You're talking 9 months. That's a huge commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, I think, longer than that, but we settled into this 9 month phase. So why is that important? And what did you do over that time that took 9 months to figure out, right? I mean, you got a lot going on as you're walking through the front door. You're dealing with a lot of things. So.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously you're dealing with past situations. Some are dealing with chemical dependency, and some are just dealing with, like I said, life dominating sins.
This is the dependency itself takes a while to unravel, right?
Right.
But you were sober for a period of time before you came to the program because you were in jail, right? So
not very long though.
Okay.
It was like maybe a month.
So you're still pretty much okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way it works is with anything you have to put it into practice. I mean, if you're going to go work out, you have to practice. If you're going to play a sport, you got to practice, all that kind of stuff. While we are in addiction or we're in this lifestyle of bad decision making, it forms these neural pathways that you basically have to form new ones because we're stimulating our own chemicals as we go about, whether it's chemical dependency or it's a decision that we're making that's triggering the same effect. And so when you're in camp, you are putting into practice the Word of God and fellowshipping with gentlemen in similar situations.
Yeah.
You're putting this into practice, and over time, of putting it into practice, those neural pathways are going to change. And so over the course of this 9 months of putting it into practice, it becomes routine.
Yeah.
You've heard it say before, going on autopilot or whatever. For the longest time, we've been dosing ourselves with our own chemicals or stimulating it, whether it be through anger that stimulates the same effects as cocaine, or heroin addiction that stimulates the same, dopamine and oxytocin and, those euphoric chemicals. And so you're putting into practice the word and fellowshipping with like-minded individuals and forming these new neural pathways, which you get to a certain point and you are then not dependent on that old behavior or chemical. And so you get to a point, and the sweet spot is usually 9 months. And there is an option to go into SLT, which is servant leader in training, if you feel you need more time to put that into practice. Yeah. Or as believers, we strive to be more Christ-like and give back, serving, and then they put you through a biblical counseling and addiction counseling class, which is nice.
Yeah.
But I think it's that sweet spot of putting it into practice.
Sure. Yeah. And so you're doing that for 9 months with alongside of other people who are on the same path as you, I'm sure from all walks of life, right? Yes. Talk to me about the different people that are there.
So it's a melting pot of all walks of life, all education levels, all backgrounds, from somebody that isn't well educated to somebody that's very well educated, to has somebody is used to living out in the woods to somebody that's only lived in the city, and so there were guys that were down there that were like, I've never seen so many trees.
Yeah.
And
they probably didn't swim in the lake, I guess.
Right. And all kinds of backgrounds that usually on the street you wouldn't hang out with the other gentleman, but it works, and that's a God thing. And so in my experience there, the brothers that I fellowship with, that I keep in contact with, I work with a few of the guys that graduated. The ones that I don't work with, I still keep in contact with and fellowship outside of program, are from all kinds of backgrounds.
Yeah.
That, like I said, we probably would not have hung out prior to having that experience. But we all have one thing in common. We believe in Christ.
Yeah.
And so that is the common ground.
Well, you believe in Christ, and you've seen him open doors for you that you didn't think would be open, right? Like you've seen him provide in ways that you didn't think would be possible. Right. And you have this common experience that you've gone through the trenches together in probably the most difficult time in your life.
Oh, it'll expose you.
Yeah. And you've seen each other's vulnerabilities. You have heard each other's stories, right? And probably some private moments that people wouldn't have told to anybody, they've told to each other, right? And so you have this common bond with these guys over an extended period of time. And some come and go, some probably left, right? They came in the program and didn't finish.
Yeah.
How many people, talk to me about, and you've graduated the program. So how many people came in with you around that time frame? How many people finished alongside of you once it was all said and done?
I don't know what the exact number is, but it starts out in orientation with a fairly large group.
Yeah.
And that will sift you really quickly.
How so?
So you're in situations, and, God will put you through tests and trials while you're there, but either you're there for the right reason or you're there just for a bed.
Yeah.
And some people end up there and they're like, well, this is a roof over my head and X, Y, and Z. And they won't put in the legwork in the program. And so ultimately it will get to a certain point, and biblical love is different than, worldly love. And biblical love, to allow you to continue to be in your mess, to live like you were or whatever, it's enabling. And so, biblical love is having your best interest at heart. So, at some point you're going to be like, hey, you're not getting it. You're not doing it. You're unteachable.
Yeah.
We can't help you at this point in time, but when you're ready, let us know.
So I'm assuming the people that left, they took themselves out of the program, right? Like
more often than not.
Either they left on their own, which you're able to do, right? At any moment during this program, you can just leave, right? Yeah. And you're not allowed to just come back the next day, but you can leave. Right.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you probably didn't see a lot of staff just out of nowhere have someone dismissed from the program, or they ultimately take themselves out, right? Yeah. So again, the journey that you started with this larger group in orientation, and you ended up at graduation 9 months later.
Yeah.
How many of those guys do you think finished with you?
Maybe if you start out with 30, it wound up 5.
Yeah.
By the end.
And you're one of those 5. And so that's a difficult road, right? Sure. It's not easy going through this, right? You've got a lot to deal with, right? There's accountability. There's, so how did you finish, right? So out of 20 or 30, 5 make it through it, man. They get through to the finish of at least the program itself. Like, talk to me about what in your mind changed where you said, I'm committed to this and I'm going to finish this all the way through.
Sure. There were plenty of times I wanted to leave. But I knew I needed to lean into this faith and see where it was going to take me. And clearly in scripture, it tells you're going to have hard days.
Yeah.
A lot of it was emotions that will lie to you. They're red flags, and they'll help you identify things, but they'll lie to you. And you think you'll get in that spot, and you'll start thinking about family, financial issues. You'd rather be out doing fill in the blank. And these are all designs by Satan to distract you from that growth that's going on. And so I would lean into the faith. I would sleep on it. More often than not, I'd get up the next day and I'd be like, I'm glad I stayed.
Yeah. Made the right choice, right? And it was tough, but you wake up, you're glad you did. Right?
And I obviously I wanted something different than being that old self.
Yeah. Yeah. So you finished, you're on graduation. What's different about Justin at this point, right? So
for starters, I was an atheist for a long time, and I was the type that would have debated, and I would have been like, you're wrong for X, Y, and Z, and brought science into it and all that under the sun. At the end where I graduated, I had more knowledge in the word, which is one thing I 100% did not have. And so, that's an ignorant thing. And so I had a knowledge in the word that I could put into practice. I had been putting it into practice, and I was seeing the change that was happening. My family, which my son's grandmother would bring my son down to visit, and he's 4 at this time, and he had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes prior to me, my whole shenanigans. And so he's coming down and visiting with me. And, he gets through the grapevine back to Annette that, there's change. And so she wants to see. So she comes down and she sees how I'm doing. And, I didn't expect to see her, period.
Yeah.
I didn't. And then she came back again and saw it. And once I graduated, I was able to reconcile in that and focus on being a dad at that point, and getting that relationship in order. I was also blessed with the opportunity to work for Wheeler as well. So.
Yeah. So do you see being a dad, being an employee? So you get hired at Wheeler. We'll get to that. Do you see that the things that you did and learned, you talk about biblical knowledge, but do you see that these things that you did and learned and were trained in and did over an extended period of time are preparing you to be a healthy dad, to be a healthy, partner? Because you're not married, right? So
not yet.
Right.
We're working on that.
Yeah.
So a common complaint with my family was my language. Every other word was a swear word. And, when the argument would come up, I'd be like, well, I'm an adult and I can do, what I want, which that's one thing that camp did is, everybody with these secular rehabs want to know where the damage is. Where's the trauma that's causing you to numb your pain? Well, for me, it wasn't that. I'm entitled. I'm full of pride, and I'm arrogant. And so it took camp to reveal that to me. And that's why I throw a little hissy fit. I'm a toddler,
Yeah.
And so I can admit that now, because that's where a lot of that was stemming from. I was the idol. And so, Sorry, I have brain fog here. So
we're talking about like how the program itself has prepared you for the realities of life that you're now faced with, right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And the responsibilities.
So their common complaint was the cussing, amongst other things. And, I walked in from work one time and my son being, I don't know, 3, 4, said the F word and then looks over at me and then I can feel the heat coming out of the room and it's like, oh boy. And so when I'm down at camp, I'm working in the pallet shop and God puts Antonio across from me. And I did become friends with Antonio. I love him to death. But Antonio had a foul mouth. He threw hissy fits. He very similar in name to my son. And so that situation right there revealed to me that my language was horrible. I only cared about myself. I had no patience for anybody or anything, mainly, my son, because he would get in the way of my addiction. And then it taught me how to de-escalate.
Yeah, because you've been through that experience, right? Like you did it in a healthy environment, and so when it came up in your home life, like you've been through that, right? Mm-hmm. Like you've done that in a positive way.
Yes.
Like you've had that experience play out in front of you before, right?
Yeah. So no more cussing, de-escalation. Instead of shouting and spanking and all that, we can hash it out in a calmer manner and explain why. Instead of just because dad said so, and he's getting interested in faith. He sees his mother and myself doing our Bible studies and getting into the Word, and he's asked for a Bible, and I got him his first one a few months ago. And
you're seeing generational change already as the father's healthy, right? So it becomes the family itself, and so you're seeing the fruit of that already.
Yeah.
And that'll play out over years and hopefully forever, right? So, yeah, man. So this is a 2-year journey we're talking about at this point, right? Today, like, so this is about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So now you've graduated. You come on staff. What was the job offer? What did that look like?
So I wanted to be in a position where I could be clearly reminded of what is waiting for me if I were to turn. And I wanted to give back. I felt like I have enough experience with running around on the street, because there were, points in my life in Columbus, Ohio, where I was in the worst part of town, just running around on the street, in places that most people just won't step foot, and then I've also got a background in all kinds of it. One would say I'm a jack of all trades, master of nothing. I have nothing I can boast in. And then obviously clearly not now, but I'm well-rounded, and I feel like I can help pretty much anybody I come across with what they're struggling in, and whether it's chemical dependency or you're making bad life choices and you are, you've got this street mentality, which can be untrained. Mm-hmm. And so I asked if I could, potentially get a job working at the shelter, and the person that I talked to said, absolutely, I'll see what, what's going on there. Cause they had somebody during one of the visits down there say something about, we need guys from Hebron to work, as staff. And so I jumped on that and this
is downtown Indianapolis now. Yep. At the shelter. We're talking about the shelters in Indianapolis.
Yeah. And so I was blessed with the opportunity to graduate and start working at the shelter not long after getting graduating from camp. Yeah. And I worked there for about 3 months during the winter, which is
the hardest part.
Yeah. Right? And so there was a lot.
Very busy. Extra people. Yeah.
And a lot of unfortunate things, a lot of guys that I knew that had been in the program that either got dismissed or left on their own
back in the shelter,
and they just were not doing well. And so, I was able to minister to some of them, provide, guidance for, people that were in those situations. Hey, I know this place, and it can happen for you there. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But if you want out of this lifestyle, this is where.
So now during your employment at Wheeler Mission, you're pointing people that are in shelter to the program itself, right? And you've been through it. You've graduated from this program. You could talk about what the experience is like. You obviously are a testimony of the change that someone can experience and how God has provided for you along the way, right? And some of the new opportunities you're getting with your family. So they're probably seeing something in you that they want, right? Like they're hearing that testimony and they want that. So how many people take you up on that offer? Like how many people do you think you've sent or pointed to the program that they took that choice?
During that period, I don't know the exact number. Maybe 10, you know, in between the three months that I worked in that position. And then I was blessed with the opportunity to go into a case management position that allowed me to interact with people and do an intake for the program. I mean, that's how much I believe in the program. I wanted to work for. And so now I have the opportunity to speak with gentlemen that are at the shelter or that come over to the men's residential center, which is where my office is located. I'm able to go to rehabs and jails as well. And I talk with all kinds of people in all kinds of different situations. And, you know, I explain the benefits and my testimony as to what I got out of it and what can happen for you. And I mean, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but in the course of from April to now, I'd say probably 80.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you were doing it on your own passion to point people towards this program. Now the door's been open for you to have the job of getting people into the program, and you're going to the places where you came from, right? So not probably the specific jail, but jails themselves.
Actually, the specific jail. I'm able to go to Hamilton County, which is after we do this podcast, I'm going there at 1:00 to speak to the Tower program out there, which is basically a reentry. So it's gentlemen that are in the situation where they've got court cases that are wrapping up and they're potentially getting discharged, or they know they're getting discharged. And I'm able to tell them the benefits of this program. Hey, this place is a place that you can go after your incarceration to better yourself, to get a relationship with Christ that's going to lead you down a really good path. And that their situations might save somebody else's life.
That's awesome. And so you over 80 people, give or take, have taken you up on this. And some won't finish, but those are seeds that are planted in their lives, right? It's a difficult road.
With the situation with Antonio is he ended up getting dismissed, but God wasn't done with him there. You know, I ran into him later on at the Brookside Church, and he was with his wife, he was with his son, and he was doing better, although he was still cussing a little.
It takes time.
But I mean,
right?
When this gentleman showed up at camp, he was a hot mess. When he did get dismissed, it was a situation, but he was doing a whole lot better than when he got there. So I saw the change, and this was a miracle in his life, because, you know, this is the way he grew up, you know, and that had, you know, that was probably at that point 30, 40 years of living that way.
So what you're talking about is the need to continue heading down the same path that has gotten you the success so far, right? So you've been given a safe environment for 9 months inside this program. Some people even take a second program and called servant leadership training and continue that. But eventually, whatever program you graduate from is over, and you're going to need to continue walking this out long term, right? You can't just go back to our old ways. I mean, you're going to need support along the way to do that, whether it's from maybe it's Wheeler Mission that's giving you this support. I'm sure. Are you involved in a local church that is helping you out? Like, what is post program healthy experience? What are you experiencing there?
So I always tell guys, especially when they're entertaining going back to their family or going to whatever or going to get their own place, please don't do that. There is a transitional phase that Wheeler offers called Connect. They can help you find a job, allow you a place to stay to save up. You're still fellowshipping with people. There are churches around the area, like Brookside in particular, that will send a van and pick the guys up in the morning, take them there, give them breakfast. You can fellowship there, and then they return them back to the men's residential center. So that's what I did. When I graduated, I stayed at the men's residential center and the Connect track, and so that's 3 months where you can save. Once you get a job, save up. I believe they give you about 2 months to find one, and they can help with that and help you with building resumes. Once you find the job, you have the 3 months to stay there, save up. It's required to save 70%. That way you have something to, work off of. At the 3 month mark, they allow you to stay. They charge $250 to stay there, but it's still all utilities, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then they give you sack lunches to take with you to work. So that allows you to continue to stay, to continue to be in a place where you can be held accountable, ask for help if you need it, fellowship, stay in the Word. I mean, one of the biggest things for me was continuing the journaling and the daily moral inventory and the going to church and the fellowshipping. That's the biggest part. I continued to fellowship, go to Bible studies, go to lunches. The community was a big aspect of it. When you go out and then you isolate, that's when bad things happen. And so there's that segue back into the world. They also now, which they didn't offer at that time, offer Cornerstone Living, which is a really nice perk. It's open-ended income-based living. And so it is the next stepping stone for anybody that wants accountability or has barriers as far as, like, you've got felonies in your record, you've got evictions, no rental history, gaps in rental history, bad credit. This is a stepping stone. They still offer resources, and it's a guide out.
That's a pretty new program too. So that's just in the pilot phases, but that's going to be a big step moving forward for Wheelers to provide that, because there's a lot of guys and girls that need that. So everything you're talking about on the men's side, this is available on the women's side, right? With women's programming. And so this post-program supportive care model is something that needs to continue to grow, because it's so important in the long-term success of people's life.
If you just drop back out there and you don't continue any of the fellowshipping, the daily moral inventory, the going to church, and even being in an environment where you have accountability. I mean, because a lot of these people end up back with family members who may or may not be trying to do the right thing. And that's a temptation. That's a stumbling block.
Well, it's quite a journey, Justin, that you've shared with us. I appreciate it. We could talk for a long time. I'm sure your stories are just getting started, right? But you're on a daily basis pointing people towards this opportunity for them to get help. That is your job. And you're having these one-on-one conversations in your office, I'm sure. But talk to people who are listening to this that either are thinking about asking for help. Maybe they're experiencing homelessness, addiction. You mentioned life-dominating sin, things that are just controlling their life, right? And they can't figure out how to get out of it. And the money's not the fix. The where do I live is not the fix. There's more, right? And they need help. Talk to people that are listening now, either for themselves or people they know, of why they should reach out and ask for help.
So we are all people that have been through it in one way, shape, or form, whether it's chemical dependency or the bad decision-making lifestyle. There's no shame in asking for help. And some people find themselves in a situation where they don't feel like they deserve any help, or they're stuck in a situation where things just won't change. There is help out there. The feeling that you're not worthy enough, that's a lie from the pit of hell. That's condemnation that Satan wants you to stay in. You're never going to amount to anything, blah, blah, blah. That's a lie. One thing I experience with quite often from gentlemen that come over from the shelter is they've lost hope. When you can provide hope and say, hey, look, listen, this is my story. I thought I was beyond hope. But I went through this program that allows you time to sit still, that's a big thing. When you are tackling the world and, relying on your own, yourself to get through it, it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
Especially when you throw in bad decision making and addiction. But this place allows you time to put into practice the Word of God, fellowship with like-minded individuals. And, if you have chemical dependency, it gives you that time to not worry about where you're going to get that, how you're going to pay for this, how you're going to do that. Life can go on hold for a brief period of time. God's going to meet you in that, and he's going to provide. And at the end, when you're ready, when God knows that you're ready, he's going to put those things back in your life. The money will come, the job will come,
yeah,
the relationship will come. But don't be in a hurry to do that. Be in a hurry to have a relationship with Christ, because he can change that in you, because I can't. I know that. I tried every angle. I tried getting the money. I tried switching careers, moving states. I've been in and out of jails, rehabs, AA rooms, NA rooms, you name it. I've tried the angle. It does not work. It may go for a little bit because God gives you that free will, but when you start train wrecking it and he'll let you do it, you'll get into a position where you're like, okay, God, what do you got for me?
Mm-hmm.
Reach out for help. And the Hebron program, Wheeler programs can offer that.
Yeah, nobody's too far gone, right?
No.
I've seen people walk through the front doors of Wheeler Mission, and I thought, no way, like this there's like he can barely speak, right? Like he's just been through it so much, and that's before you even hear about what's going on behind the scenes in the family. And I've seen God change all that, right? And you've experienced it in your own life, things that you thought the consequence, there's no way I can get out of this, or there's no way that this could be restored. You're starting to see the fruit of God moving in your life. And so that's
my
what
family's being restored. My health is being restored. I mean, I had a point in my life where my liver was pretty much shot.
Yeah.
I had hepatitis. I was almost 200 pounds. And now.
And you're a short guy, so that
right.
sounds like doesn't sound like a lot.
No,
but
short that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so, I was able to, get off the blood pressure medications. I don't have hepatitis anymore. My liver the last time I got my labs done, which is an experience because of being a heroin addict, you have to get an ultrasound. That's a thing.
Yeah.
But my labs came back all 100%. Everything's in working order. I'm healthy now, and I stick to eating right. And, I'm down to 125 pounds versus pushing 200. I mean, I was at a point in time when I worked for an HVAC company and I wanted to lace up my boots. I had to take a deep breath and pray that I got through it on the first pass.
Yeah. Well, man, you're different, and I didn't know you when you were younger, but I can just see in your eyes that you have hope and that you have been through a lot, and you believe that God can do more in your life. And
100%.
You're talking about just a couple-year journey. There's a long way to go in your life, and God's going to do amazing things if you keep continuing forward. And I think if we talked 2 years from now, your family restoration story would be probably involve a few more miracles inside of it. And so keep it going, man. And I'm sure your parents would be proud of you. So what do you think your dad would think of your journey now?
They both of them would be absolutely thrilled.
Yeah.
My dad didn't get to see me sober. My mom didn't get to see me sober. So, and for the first time ever, a few weeks back, my daughter came to visit, who I hadn't seen in 3 years, who's never seen me sober. Spent a week at my house, and so that was good. And she's planning on coming back in the very near future. So
and she's young enough that those memories will start to outweigh the others, right? And so. Keep it up, Justin. I'm proud of you. Just hearing your story inspires me, and I would just encourage you to keep telling that story to as many people as possible. God's doing amazing things. So, but thank you. I know again, there's a lot more we could talk. We went for a while, but I think it was all great. And so, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service here at Wheeler Mission, and enjoy the road that God's got you on. So, all right, take care. Hey, if this podcast episode spoke to you, we'd love for you to dig a little bit deeper. Check out some of our other podcast episodes. We're going to tell lots of great stories that are going to really bless you. You're going to hear more about experiences that people experiencing homelessness have. What is that like for them, right? You're going to hear more about what goes on inside of Wheeler Mission's walls. You're going to hear stories from some of our friends in the community. But check those out. But you can also get plugged in right here at Wheeler Mission. We'd love for you to volunteer. Sometimes that can be just serving a meal, but there's lots of great ways to come and get plugged in here as a volunteer. Also, if you know somebody that needs help, Wheeler Mission is a resource for you. And so point them our direction. You can get all those phone numbers and websites to get plugged in at wheelermission.org. Again, send people our way who need help or get plugged in yourself. But again, we thank you for listening.